Sometimes you need to just ask somebody straight up whether they're going to train with you or not. Right? You can hint at it, you can beat around the bush, you can create content, you can hope that they find your application link and walk them through the process, but sometimes you need to just reach out to somebody and just say, we're going to do this thing or not. Both are fine. But if we're going to do this thing, let's freaking do this thing. So in this conversation with Sam and Vanessa as the hot seat from one of my mentorships, they're approaching a launch. And we talked about how to best approach it, and basically they have a lot of people who have been kind of interested and they've spoken to in some capacity over the years. They call it like a green light list. And we talked about how to approach it. And what I told them is that when it comes to these types of situations, my rule of thumb, my heuristic is yes is a great answer, no is a perfectly fine answer, maybe or I need to think about it are unacceptable answers. And so how exactly do you do that in a respectable way that's like not overly aggressive but direct? Because we're a coach. Sometimes we need to be direct and, I don't know, kind of call people out on their shit, right? So hope that you enjoy this call. Hope that it helps you make a few more sales. And I'll be back afterwards to finish up and give you something else to listen to if you're looking for something else to help. Sam, Vanessa, I'll bring you two on first. You can decide who wants to chat first. But what we generally ask, or what I generally ask, if you just give a really, really quick overview of who you serve, kind of what you do really, really fast, and then what you want to talk about today.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So my business partner and I, Vanessa, we both started our home-based kettlebell workouts for busy parents. We started that last fall. We've had about 30 people go through it, with a couple of people enrolling into our legacy program as well. We had our last launch in January when we enrolled our goal number. But then what we realized was that our messaging was just a little off. So we worked a lot in February and March in distilling our message to speak specifically to our avatar, busy parents who are trying to reprioritize their fitness without sacrificing family time. We really try to get deep into that message. And then when we internalize and focus on operations, our messaging, our marketing, our branding, we got a lot of conversations. And now we're preparing for our next launch. And we know that there's a distance between the time we've talked to those leads. We haven't really nurtured them too well. And that's giving us like a little bit of anxiety in regards to rekindling those conversations. Right. And then also trying to talk to new faces. So we've gone through some social media and, like I said, messaging stuff where we're trying to really distill our message. We haven't really grown our audience significantly to have a lot of new eyes on us, but we do have maybe about 100 new eyes on us. Okay. So our issue kind of is, how can we make sure, number one, that we're introducing the conversation of trying to help the people that we've talked to previously, because that's going to be our bucket. That's going to be our greenest leads. Even though we're kind of down on our green leads, those are going to be our greenest leads. And then, after that, how can we really nurture everyone in our funnel to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for some solid success in future launches?
How many folks ballpark are in that? You called them green leads. How many folks are in there?
I would say maybe, if I can think about myself personally, about 25, so probably about 50 total.
Okay. And when you say green leads, what do you mean by that? Like, what contact have you had previously?
So these are a lot of people that maybe we previously worked in with, like, on a one-on-one capacity. I'm a former one-on-one personal trainer for 13 years. This is less than a year I've been online. So those are people I've had those kind of relationships. Some referrals. Hey, my friend has been doing this and posting about it. It kind of intrigued me. Cool. And some people who are just like old high school buddies that like some of the stuff I post and ask me a couple questions.
Okay. So there's almost like green and then greener, it sounds like.
Kind of, right. And like, we just did a challenge and we signed up 3 people, but those are actually people that we've been nurturing probably since the winter. And then we sent them resources. We said, hey, we're doing this challenge. They joined the challenge. They actually did really well at it, which knew that we knew they were ready to go into a call. was the obstacles were almost non-existent. You're like, yes, I'm
Yeah.
ready. Let's go.
Right. Are these people already interested in kettlebells? Like, do they come to you and they say,
Not
we want kettlebell
specifically,
training?
not specifically. They're just they know that they can't do the traditional gym model.
Okay.
Um, they're a little older. They're usually like 40 plus.
Uh-huh.
So they're not going to do any high intensity jumping around kind of stuff.
Sure.
And weight loss and things like that are our priority, but most of them are actually just trying to improve their quality of life, move better, feel better. And we do hear a lot of, I want to be stronger, and I want to be able to participate in life,
Yeah.
instead of being sidelined because of my strength.
Okay. So thank you for all of that. Vanessa, anything to add? Or are you good with that?
I'm good with that. I was just gonna, just for the kettlebell question, not
Mhm.
necessarily everybody has experience with kettlebells, and that's okay. And I think that's the other thing is how much do we harp on the kettlebells or
Yeah.
just leave that aside?
Well, that's kind of why I brought it up. It seems like, I mean, kettlebells specifically, I don't know why. I feel like they were just marketed really, really well by Dragon Door back in the day. So people became like obsessed with them. I think they're great. I think they're a great tool. But I mean, I don't think you have to use them. I don't think anybody has to use them. And so that was going to be my first question is, if people are coming to you as like the kettlebell experts because you built a brand in that community and they already know they love them, that's very, very different than you saying, hey, we're going to give you kettlebell home workouts. And they're going to say kettlebell.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how you, I think, figure out where you lead with there. To me, the bread and butter is like, well, we're going to give you low impact home workouts for high results.
Right. So we
using a
focus
tool that you
like,
can get cheaply.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we don't harp so much like, oh, the kettlebell is the answer to all your problems. We just like say it solves a couple of problems.
Yeah.
And then essentially say, okay, well, if you do 2 simple exercises, this is how we're going to guide you through it. But eventually I will say that once they start doing it, they're like, hey, I really like doing this.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
they tend to become pretty big advocates for it.
It's a nice way to specifically get them bought into what you're doing. But that's not the problem we're solving. We know that once you start working with people, you can do a great job and they stay.
Right.
It's a matter of getting some more of these folks in. So there's kind of 2 points I want to hit on here, which I think we can do it reasonably quickly. The first is these 50 green leads, as you called them. I think there's very much varying degrees, and that might dictate like the amount of time that you follow up with them. But those are all personal outreach for sure. And I think that those are like also probably pretty specific. Like, I'm going to ask you to train with me, personal outreach with a deadline. None of what I will often teach, which is reaching out to somebody and asking how they're doing and then leading into a conversation. Be like, Sam, I remember when we were training together and I remember the form on your swings and they were great, or whatever. If you have some memory of this person or something that you can specifically talk to them about, but then just say, look, I'm putting together a new group of people that I'm working with. This is the goal. It starts on this date. You down? I'd love to reserve a spot for you. Like, just like a very specific one-on-one ask. No beating around the bush. These are people who know what you do. They have shown at least some interest at some point. And this, I do think that every once in a while it's a good idea to be like, all right, are we going to do this or not? Yeah. Like,
what would you say is the number one way to make it more? I mean, I guess the direct call to action is, kind of enticing, but is there something that you could say in addition to that to make them like, oh, that kind of sweetens the deal or anything like that?
I don't even know if I would do anything. I mean, maybe have something in your back pocket to sweeten the deal, but to me, it's just a deadline. To me, it's just like, they're going to be in 1 of 2 camps. They're either 1 of 3 camps, right? The first is they're absolutely not interested. Their life's so busy and chaotic right now that there's no way in hell that they could put anything else in, and they'll just say no. The second is they're already doing something somewhere else, and so spots taken. The third is that they've been kind of thinking about this for a long time and they just haven't gotten around to it. All that you're doing here is you're just saying, if you're number 3, now's the time. Just all that you need is a deadline. Like, you have to let me know by this time. And then follow up with them and say, hey, not sure if you got if they don't get back, right? Not sure if you got the last message, but tomorrow's the last day to get started. Are you interested? And then send them a message on that last day and just be like, hey, like, look, I'm not going to bug you anymore. This is my last message, but like, last chance. And just, I don't think you need to incentivize them or sweeten the pot. I think it's just, hey, are we going to do this or not do this? Can we stop messing around?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of trainers like you, Sam, I mean, Vanessa, I don't know if you have the 13 years experience working with clients, but a lot of trainers like you, Sam, you have so many people that, as a coach, sometimes we need to just challenge people, be like, you've been thinking about this for a long time, man. Are you going to do it or not? Like, if you're not, that's fine, but let's make this a binary decision. Let's make this a yes or no thing. And I think that that's okay to ask. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be insulting, but just be like, we can do it. The second part, really, really quick, that I want to get into is whenever I talk to anybody who's in a situation like you are now, where stuff did work at one point and then it kind of stopped working, I just say, okay, let's think back to when it was working really well. What were you doing? And that's kind of a rhetorical question to you now, because to me, it's more, okay, what's the content you were posting? How were you reaching out to people? How were you spending your time? I think it is, I think it's probably a good exercise for you two to sit down and just try to visualize back to that time and say, hey, what was the flow of our days? Because there's an energetic component to this too, right? Like, what was the flow to our days? And then even go back to the content and the messages you were putting out and look at it. And you can do one of two things. Number one is just post the same thing again. Like, whenever I want to bump up, like whenever I want my followers to bump up on Instagram, because I'm like, oh, it might be getting a bit stale. I need to get a bunch of new followers here. All I do is I go into my insights and I look at what posts created the most amount of followers, and I just post them again.
Yeah.
Like that's literally, I mean, sure, I try to have a new one that's going to do well. But if you had stuff that worked before, you could try to break it down and understand it and recreate it in a different way. Or it's been a few months, you could probably just post it again and nobody would notice. So those are the two, I don't know, exercises. I don't know what you call them, but those are the two pieces of advice that I'll give you. Is number one is like pretty aggressively reach out and like make a very specific ask with a deadline and follow up as that deadline approaches to those people who are already green. And the second is to deconstruct what happened when things were going well.
But if I was just to kind of like mention it off my head, it's definitely, we're doing a lot more essentially 4Cs and definitely getting more conversations. And I think what happened was that we started focusing so much on operations because we were finding all these glitches when we were on-ramping people. We're like, oh, that's inefficient. And then we had to like make sure that if we're going to be able to handle everyone, we got to have the operation system going well. And then that distracted us from talking to people. And it's like, we're trying to balance, but now we got those problems solved, operations, all that stuff. We got all that solved. now we gotta get back to like what made us successful in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cool point of realization. That's business though, isn't it? I mean, to me, that's great. Like, you did what you needed to do. You took that step backwards to take 2 steps forwards. I think that's why I think it's really important not to get wrapped up in the moment and know that there's going to be a next moment, even though it doesn't seem like it at the time. Cool. I mean, it sounds like.
I feel like too, like in the beginning, we had all these people to like reach out to. Hey, we're starting something together. We're doing we partnered up. And now it's like when we look at who's viewing our stories, who's liking, who's coming, it's the same people
Sure.
over and over. So it's like we like, hey, thanks for watching my story. Ask them a question, or
Yeah.
But it's like.
But I do like the way of being like, hey, we've been kind of skirting around the issue. Like, are we doing this or not?
Yeah.
At least we know then. At least we know whether or not they're going to be in it or not.
That's what I mean. It's funny because of how much I'm writing about the stuff for this book that I'm writing, but I mean, it says, like, I've written straight up over and over and over again. Yes is a good answer. No is a fine answer. The only answer that's unacceptable is a maybe.
Right.
It's just like, it's fine if you don't want to work together. It's fine if you can't. But let's make a decision. Let's just know what page we're on. And it's a respectful decision. It's, hey, you're obviously tangentially interested in this in some capacity, aren't you? Okay, cool. Let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
John again, and I hope that you agree that that's not like an aggressive thing. It's just, look, sometimes you need a process for just saying to people, we're going to do this thing. If we're going to do this thing, let's freaking do this thing. Let's stop talking about it. Let's stop thinking about it. Now's the time. And the way to do that is to give a deadline and to have a real deadline. Like, it's not bullshit. It's just like, this is the real deadline. We're starting a program. You in or you not in? Like, this is a binary decision. Let's just get a yes or a no here. And I hope that helps you. If you are interested in the mentorship, or it's something you've kind of been thinking about, please, let's make this a yes or no. Let's make this a binary thing. Come on Instagram, send me a DM that just says mentor. We work with people who are already doing 1,000 or more a month, and we help them scale. This is people who coach fitness, nutrition, or any combination of those two. So if that's you, go on Instagram, send me a DM that just says mentor. I'm at It's Coach Goodman, and let's have a conversation, right? Yes is a great answer. No is a perfectly fine answer. But if you've been thinking about this for a while, let's do this thing, right? In the meantime, if you are looking for something else to listen to, I definitely recommend you checking out episode 36. That's episode 36. It's called Nail Your Sales Call with 5 Steps. I got more messages from people who have made more sales based off of this process that we lay out in any other episode I think I've ever done of anything, to be honest. The success, I still get messages about it. The success is crazy following this process. And most people have listened to it 3 or 4 times, and they've taken a lot of notes, and then they've gone and, yeah, really crushed a sales call. So have a listen to that, episode 36. It's called Nail Your Sales Call with 5 Steps. You can just scroll back in your podcast feed, wherever you're listening to this right now, and you'll find it. I hope that you enjoy it, and mostly I hope that it helps. Talk soon.